Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Huddle podcast. I am your host, Dawson Mitchell. We are live from the campus of Utah State University in Logan, Utah. It's a bit of a nice fall day today, honestly. It's 52 degrees, partly cloudy. Honestly, can't really complain with that, but I love fall. This is probably one of my favorite times of the season. We got a good show for you guys. Today we'll be discussing the firing of New York Giants head coach Brian Daboll. He was fired on Monday morning, or fired on Monday after the Giants lost to the Chicago Bears over the weekend. Honestly, that was kind of a shocker to me when I found out about that. Brian Daboll got fired from the Giants. I thought with the Jackson Dart and Cam Scadaboo, I thought things were looking up for him. I thought he finally found a plan for the Giants to get at least a winning team. Probably not this season, but maybe this season's coming. But I don't know. The Giants GM had other plans. Last week I interviewed Kolton from the USU Herd Committee, Utah State Herd Committee member. I interviewed him last week on a Thursday, I believe. I had a great conversation with him. I talked about how he does his job as a USU committee member, and we just talked about what his favorite things are working for the herd, the student section, and then we talked USU sports in general, and then just talked about just pretty much just sports. He seems like a really good guy that really likes sports. You'll be hearing from that conversation in this episode, and then we'll be going over the week 2 of the CFP top 25 rankings that were just released yesterday evening. Some interesting picks, honestly. Some interesting teams that were shown in the top 25, honestly. That kind of had me a little bit surprised. And then we'll be going over this week's lineup or the notable matchups for week 11 of college football this weekend. So yeah, let's get into it. Huddle up! Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Huddle podcast. I am your host, Dawson Mitchell. Got a good show for you today, good episode for you today. We'll be discussing a bunch of interesting things that have happened so far this week in the sports world. Brian Daboll, the New York Giants head coach, was fired on Monday. I thought that was a bit of a shocker, to say the least. I thought things were beginning to go in the right direction for him with Jackson Dart and Cam Scadaboo. That's the name I was thinking of. I was having a hard time trying to think of this. Anyways, yeah, I thought that was a bit of a shocker to hear about that. And then last week I interviewed Kolton from the USU Herd. I was going to interview Adam Pond for this episode, but he eventually never got back to me. Unfortunately, I was actually pretty excited to hear from him. Honestly, he is a offensive lineman for the Utah State football team. He's even a. Sorry, my mind just went blank for a sec. Him and I lived in the same dorm. Him and I lived in the LLC on campus. I was in building F, he was in building D, so we were like pretty much neighbors. But anyways, to say the least, and I pretty much just knew him through friends. So yeah, I hung out with him a few times. I thought he was like a really cool guy. But yeah, it's unfortunate that I wasn't able to to talk to him. But hey, Kolton from the USU Herd was able to pinch it for us. So he was so. Anyways, yeah, you'll be getting to hear from that conversation. It was actually a really good conversation that I had with Kolton. We discussed a whole lot of stuff that he does. He is a committee member for the USU Herd, so he does a whole lot of events stuff that for the USU student section. Then we got to talk just Utah State sports and then just sports in general. But but it was a really awesome, it was a really great conversation. So anyways, yeah, you'll be getting to know Kolton. And then the week 2 of the CFB Top 25 rankings was released last night. Yeah, some very interesting teams that I saw that were in the top 25. We'll be going over that, and then week 11 of the college football season is this weekend, and we'll be going over some very notable matchups for that weekend, for this weekend. So starting off on Monday, we found out that New York Giants head coach Brian Daboll was fired today, or fired on Monday. Per Jordan Raanan for ESPN states that the New York Giants have fired Coach Brian Daboll on Monday after the team blew another double-digit lead Sunday in Chicago. And then Giants co-owner John Mara and Steve Tisch said in a joint statement that the past few seasons have been nothing short of disappointing, and we have not met our expectations for this franchise. We understand the frustrations of our fans, and we will work to deliver a significant improved product. So, anyways, I thought that was a bit of a shocker, to be quite honest with you. I thought even though Cam Scadaboo is out with a severe ankle injury, he's out for the rest of the season for the Giants. But I thought that was a bit of a shocker, because I feel like the Giants could have just been a little bit more patient with Coach Daboll, to be honest with you. And because I felt like you could just see that with Jackson Dart and Cam Scadaboo, you can just see that we're heading in the right direction, because even though the record for the New York Giants in the first 10 games this year, they are 2-8, but those two games came when those two wins came when Jackson Dart and Cam Scadaboo were starting. So yeah, I thought that was a bit of a But let's take a look at this. So the first three games of the season were not too kind for the New York Giants. Week 1 against the Commanders, they lost 21-6. Week 2 against the Cowboys in Dallas, lost 40-37, and then Week 3 against Kansas City in East Rutherford, New Jersey, they would lose 22-9. Then when Week 4 came around, Daboll was looking for answers, and then eventually he decided to put Jackson Dart in the game, or to start the game, and honestly, that was like probably the best decision he could make, or one of the best decisions he could make, because after Jackson Dart went in, or after Jackson Dart started, he pretty much let the game come to him. He finished the day with 13 for 20 passing attempts, or completed passing attempts, and threw for 111 yards, and rushed for and got 1 touchdown. Cam Skadby, on the other hand, he had a pretty decent day, honestly. He finished the day with 25 carries for 79 yards. Didn't get a touchdown, but he was able to contribute a lot from all of that with the 21-18 win over Chargers. And let's not forget about the Chargers wide receivers. Theo Johnson was the only wide receiver that got a touchdown that day. He finished the day with 17 yards and only 1 touchdown. And then the following week they lost to the Saints in New Orleans, 26-14. The next week they were able to beat their rival teams, the Eagles, 24-17. In this game, Jackson Dart was 17 through 15 passing, threw for 195 yards and a touchdown. Cam Skadby rushed for 98 yards for 19 carries, 98 yards for 3 touchdowns. And then Giants wide receiver Wan'Dale Robinson had only 84 receiving yards, 6 receptions, and a touchdown. That game against the Philadelphia Eagles. But honestly, yeah, I feel for Daboll. Honestly, it's like seriously, things seemed to just start to go around. And I've almost forgot. Like since the Eagles lost since their win against the Eagles, they went 0 for 4 in the last 4 games, losing to the Broncos in Denver, the Eagles again in Philly, and against the 49ers, and like I said earlier, against the Chicago Bears in Chicago. And part of that has to do with Cam Skadby being injured. I think part of that has to do with that. I think ever since Skadby got injured, I think things just started to go downhill from there. And it's kind of sad to see, honestly. But anyways, I wish the Giants the best of luck through the rest of the season. I honestly wish good things for them. Honestly, seriously, they honestly deserve a lot of good things happening to them so far in the season, and it's just tough to see Daboll getting fired. Some might say, and you can make the argument that he might have been, what's the word I'm looking for? I can't remember the word I'm looking for, but some might say he might have been a little bit, I guess, manipulative in a way. When there was one game they played this season, I can't remember where it was, but yeah, I believe it was that Broncos game where Jackson Dart had to go into a concussion protocol because obviously because for whatever reason the NFL wants quarterbacks to go right into concussion protocol after like every big hit or something like that. And Daboll rushed into the concussion protocol tent and pretty much was a bit irritated with them, and because he was really wanting Jackson Dart back in the game, but obviously he couldn't because he was under concussion protocol, and eventually everything he was cleared and went back into the game after I think like 10 minutes at being in concussion protocol. Brian Coach Daboll is a guy that he was just ready to to win. He was just tired of just seeing the way the Giants were, and once he figured out what the problem was in starting Jackson Dart, he finally, like all of us, saw a kind of almost like a flip switch in all of us, and thought that this might be the time where things start to turn around for them and the Giants start to win again. And anyways, I just wish the best of luck for Coach Daboll. Honestly, I think he deserves to be on a team that is a successful team and a team that he can turn around. But in the coming days, we will await to hear who the interim head coach will be for the Giants. And now we'll be moving on to my interview I had with a member of the USU Herds, Kolton Freeman. He is a junior from right here in Logan, Utah. I had a good conversation with him. He is currently a junior at Utah State University. We discussed a lot about like what he does as a member of the USU Herd, and we got to talk a little bit some ball together. We got to talk a little bit about the college football rankings from not from this week but from last week. We kind of just discussed a few points of like what we thought about the CFP rankings and like what should have been done and who should have been ranked and who should not have been ranked. Anyways, I hope you enjoy our interview, and here is Mr. Kolton Freeman. I am here with Kolton Freeman. Kolton, how are you doing, sir?
Doing good.
Nice. So, just starting off, so like, where are you originally from?
So I'm from Logan, Utah, so I'm born and raised here.
Oh, nice. Good for you, yeah. And so what are you studying in?
I'm studying computer science.
Nice. What year are you?
I am a junior.
Nice. Computer science was what I originally wanted to get into when I was in high school, but after like taking one class, I didn't really like it all that much. But yeah. So with that, what are you wanting to do when do it after you graduate?
So I'm a junior. I kind of have a lot of options of kind of where I want to go, but I'm really interested in the software development side of things, and so looking into getting some form of a software developer job at a tech company.
Right. Any desire to work for like Microsoft or Intel or?
Yeah, I think that would be a lot of fun. I also have looked into working with maybe a startup to have kind of a smaller scale thing, but I'm really open to my options, and there's a lot changing in the world right now. So
right, exactly, yeah, with AI and whatnot. Yeah. So now, kind of getting into what you do. So like, how long have you worked with the herd, and how do you like it?
Yeah, so this is my second year working directly with the herd. Being from Logan, I've been an Aggie fan my whole life. I grew up going to Utah State basketball and football games ever since I was like as long as I can remember. So I always kind of dreamed of being in the herd. And then my freshman year of college was actually during COVID, so it was 2020. And I graduated high school and I came to Utah State, and it was kind of a poor experience because the student section wasn't really a thing. Due to social distancing and everything. They had like pods in the student section where it was all separated, and it was hard to get tickets to, like, you could only get tickets to like 2 out of the 6 football games. So it was like a really hard situation.
Right. And kind of like staying with that, because like kind of like during COVID, like how was that like working with the herd, and like what you said, like trying to separate fans, trying to separate the herd from just being 6 feet apart. Yeah.
Well, and so I wasn't really, I didn't work directly with the herd until last year. This is my perspective as more of a student in the herd.
Yeah.
Then I went and served a mission, and I got home off my mission and was home for a year. And then I met some friends that were on the herd committee, and they helped me to get onto the herd committee. And last year was my first year on the herd committee, and now I'm currently serving as the game day director for the herd.
Good for you, yeah, awesome. So what's your favorite part working with the herd?
Yeah, there's a lot that I love about working with the herd and working with the students in general. Is I love seeing like an impact that I can make in other students' lives and improving their student experience. My goal and kind of my drive for why I put so much time and effort into the herd is that I want the student experience to be as greatly improved as possible, and I think sports and athletics and going to these games is an amazing, incredible way for us to help improve a student experience. I mean, with homework and exams and everything that's going on, school's really stressful, and I think that a good outlet to kind of get away from it for a bit is sports.
Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah. And so like, what's your relationship like with the athletes and the coaches?
Yeah, no, that's a really our relationship in the past couple of years with athletes and coaches has greatly improved. One thing that we emphasize doing is we have a weekly meeting as a herd committee And in those weekly meetings, we try reaching out to coaches and players of teams. And throughout the past 2 years, we've had Manny Martins, Rob's assistants. We've had the gymnastics coach, Jared Calhoun. We've had all these coaches come and present to us and work with us, and they share their love for us and for what we do for them, and we bounce ideas off of them, as well as they've had their teams and certain players this last week. Kendall Thompson and Tierney Barlow came to the meeting with one of the assistant coaches, and we talked, and they gave us ideas, and they kind of showed their appreciation for what we do. So it's a really cool dynamic that you kind of get to see. Student athletes, a lot of times I feel like they are put in this position where they're kind of on a pedestal, and they seem like they're like celebrities almost. And
in some ways, yeah.
And it's cool to have these experiences where you can interact with them on a personal level.
Right.
Another thing that was really cool for us to work with is me and Ben Burdett. Carson Templin had this date night event with S.E. Needham Jewelers, and they collaborated with us on that, and they reached out to us. And me and Ben went to the event, and we got to have a cool interaction with Carson where you kind of interact with them on more of a friend level, and there's a lot of experience like that. We'll see them around at certain events, and you have that connection with the athletes, and it's kind of breaking this barrier of like student to athlete and helping us like see them as actual students and peers,
right?
Which is really cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, and so you're obviously familiar with this. So like, believe it was last semester the university changed it from the students from just swiping their card to get into sporting events to now having to buy student tickets, which are free, but you're still supposed to be assigned to like pick a seat in the stadiums, no matter if it's like football, basketball, hockey, what have you. And so what was kind of like your initial reaction to that?
Mm-hmm. I got really excited when I found out that was something that they were doing, because I feel like it's a way for you in terms of accessibility to tickets, and knowing that like you have a ticket claimed for these events and these like sporting events. That makes it really nice, where it's like it's not, a lot of students were thrown off that it felt like a purchase, but there's no purchase. It's all it is
right.
The week of, you go and you claim the tickets, and it's a ticket claim, and it's really easy and organized. And then you have it helps us as with Herd. There's the Herd Premium,
yeah,
the $30 for the year you get in early to football and men's basketball games. And now it's possible that the Herd Premium tickets are a lighter shade of blue compared to the regular tickets are a darker shade of blue. So it helps the events staff when we're trying to get into the doors that they know if you have Herd Premium or not. Where before it was kind of hard because it was up to like a sticker on your ID card or a card you had, and this is just a lot more streamlined and kind of up to date with like the rest of the world. Right.
And so kind of like the initial reaction to that was like there was like a whole lot of frustration from a lot of the students, and I think this was like prior to like the Utah State-Utah rivalry game from last year. It was like kind of like the week of this was announced, and then there was like a whole lot of people outraged, and then all of a sudden like all the tickets were sold out, and then no one else could go in. It was so what would be what was your reaction to like the reaction to like the students like reacting negatively to it?
Yeah, no, I felt for the students, and in this situation, it's important to understand too that we're working with the ticket office too, that having a new system comes with bugs and things that kind of go wrong, and there's a lot of troubleshooting that went into it. And I know there's a lot of frustration with the certain issues with people claiming tickets and not being able to and everything. And I think change is always difficult for people.
In a way, yeah.
And anytime there's like a change like that, I think people have a hard time like accepting and understanding. But something we are doing that helps us with this is with these ticket claims, we can see us as our like directors and looking at students, we work with a ticket office, and on a weekly basis, we get numbers back on how many ticket claims students have claimed to events, and that helps us gauge what we need to be doing and how much we need to be pushing to the student base to get higher attendance at these events. And numbers-wise, it helps us a lot to have a perspective on how many students are planning on coming to this game, what we need to push, and it overall helps the security of the event staff knowing how many students are actually coming to the game,
right,
and actually how many students are in the game. And another feature that they added this year, because in the past when it was just swipe your card, remembers that you had a lot of non-students that were getting into games and that were using other people's IDs, and that can become a safety concern where you have, and it becomes a concern where people are lying to get into the games because they're not actually students.
Right.
And this year they've changed it to even you have to be logged in with your Utah State account on the phone that you claim a ticket on to have it in your mobile wallet, and they're non-transferable. And so that helps us with making sure that students are the ones actually getting to these games, and that if a situation with the Utah game happens, we're making sure it's just students that are getting in and not other people that aren't students using a student's ticket.
Right. Yeah. So, and kind of like what you said, like it's kind of difficult to like adjust to change. So, like I was used to like just swiping my card to get into games. Like I remember I think it was like a couple semesters ago I was taking an evening class, and this was like during basketball season. So like right after the class would end, and if there was a home game, I would go to the Spectrum and just swipe my card and watch the game, and it would be like in the middle of the first half still. Mm-hmm. So I thought it was kind of like, so my initial reaction to it was I think it was just really taking away from that convenience, but I think, like you said, like we kind of have to like understand like it's like this is supposed to be beneficial for the students. It's supposed to help like the security know who's actually going to the games, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So like you said like you have a pretty good relationship with the athletes and the coaches, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And so like what would you say like your initial reaction was when you found out that Bronco Mendenhall was the new head coach for USC football?
Yeah, I was really excited, and since I said last year was my first year on the committee, I never really saw us have a super good relationship because Blake Anderson was fired by the time I was really on the committee.
Right.
And that whole situation happened where he left, so we didn't really have a super good relationship like with the football team,
right,
and the football players in that. But since Bronco has been head coach, I'm super excited for it as a fan. I feel like it brings a lot of order to our football team, right, and it's someone that you can trust, has proven results of being a good head coach.
Exactly, right.
And so I'm excited for it as a fan, and also I think he's shown that he cares about the community and the herd. There's a couple things I can point to. Every year we have camp out on the quad before the first football game.
Yeah.
And that night we normally have football and basketball coaches. Some people come and talk, and players, and the women's basketball team. And we were really just expecting the men's and women's basketball team to show up and talk and hype up the students.
Yeah.
And then as we were sitting there waiting, Bronco showed up with some of his staff, and he came out to show the students. And it's like 11:30 at night.
Yeah, that's
and
awesome.
he showed up and he hyped up the students, and he talked with them. And it was cool because that shows that he cares about the students.
Right.
And for us, that's really big, as well as after one of the last football games, he made an emphasis that all the football team would learn the fight song. And after the football game, he stayed with the team and made sure all the team came over and was singing the words to the fight song after the game in front of the student section. And that's cool for us to see.
That's awesome,
because
yeah.
that shows that they're kind of giving back to us, because you have students that wait out hours and hours for these games.
Right.
So.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, like, I kind of sort of have, like, a little personal connection with Broncos. So, kind of, like, way back in the early 80s, back when, like, during, like, the Lavelle Edwards era of BYU, my dad was a student at BYU, and right at the same time, Bronco was was there as a student, and not only that, they lived in the same dorm buildings as one another, so they kind of developed a relationship a little bit. And so like when my dad found out that Bronco was the new head coach, he was actually like really excited about it, and like it got to the point where like he was like trying to talk with him and like trying to get his contact information and try to like get like email him, and like for whatever reason they just kept like turning him down. I'm like, oh man. So like I think our best decision now is just to actually go to like one of the football games, like probably like to the Boise State game, and like maybe try to get a front row seat and try to get his attention to get him to come over there. And so yeah, anyways, yeah, and so like kind of like staying with like in this college football spectrum. So like obviously the CFP was released this week, and so like what was your like initial reactions to it?
Yeah, I think with the CFP, a lot of like what's happening. There's a lot of drama right now in college sports and college athletics. You're kind of seeing a lot of the mid-major Group of 5 teams get pushed out and squeezed out through NIL and rev share, and the money that goes into paying athletes is these smaller schools can't afford it and get into it, and so it's hard. You see a lot of it's just basically a Power 4 schedule, but you also see a lot of really good teams that are out just across the board. I mean, USF's shown they're a really good team this year.
Oh yeah,
Memphis has shown there's a couple really good Group of 5 teams that are kind of, I think personally, get overlooked just because they don't have that national brand and they don't have a lot of the bias that the SEC and Big Ten gets from their name.
Yeah, like you said, like there's I guess you can. Would you consider Vanderbilt a Group of 5 now or no?
No, they're Vanderbilt.
Vanderbilt, yeah.
Yeah, they're a SEC team.
Yeah, but like they're kind of like one of the worst SEC teams. That's why I'm asking if you would consider them maybe like a Group of 5 team or or just a really crappy like.
I think they're very, they're not like a Group of 5, but they were a lower tier SEC, and you see that the gap between the top and the bottom of the SEC is shrinking. And I actually had a cool opportunity. I went with my family to the Vanderbilt-Utah State game this year, and so I flew out with them, and we went and walked around toward Vanderbilt's campus and their new stadium that they've been renovating, and it was really cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And you kind of got to see, like, even though they are like a worse Power 5 team.
Well, used to be.
Yeah. Like, they are, like, their facilities and everything they have, like, it is very impressive. And you do see the gap between where even we are at and where they're at.
Right, yeah. So I got the top 25 standings like pulled up right here. So it's Ohio State 1, Indiana 2, which makes sense because they beat Oregon at Autzen this year, and it's kind of interesting. I see there's also Texas A&M at 3, which I think that's a little bit too nice. I mean, I don't think Texas A. Yeah.
No, you're good. It's hard because they're undefeated. I think a lot of the big SEC teams, like you see 3 through 6, Texas A&M, Alabama, Georgia, Ole Miss, I think are very neck and neck. But I think they're close, and they all can kind of be interchanged.
Right.
Like, for example, I think Alabama, they lost their first game to Florida State.
Yeah.
And ever since, they've looked like an incredible, national. I think they've looked like one of the best teams out there. I think Ohio State's, clearly the top, and Indiana is going to have to prove that they're not just a paper tiger because they did really good last year, and then they kind of the bigger games they folded. But this year, I think I really like their coach, and I think their team has looked really good and dominant through everything.
Yeah, Indiana has definitely really improved within the past year with Zanetti as their head coach. But and I'm looking through this list. Like you said, I just don't see Texas A&M being better than Alabama, Georgia, BYU, Oregon. Let's see, Texas Tech. Well, maybe Texas. I don't know.
I mean, I think I think BYU's too high, but that's my personal bias of being an Aggie fan.
Well, yeah. I mean, as an Aggie fan, you've got to always always give BYU crap. But anyways,
no, I'm excited. My dad's going to the BYU Texas Tech game this weekend.
That game's gonna be awesome.
He's super excited, and I'm excited to see how that game. I think it's a shame that they didn't flex it to a night game, but
right.
I think it'll still be a really good matchup.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And shoot, I forgot what I was about to ask you. Give me a sec. Have you also done some work with the USU baseball team?
Yes,
in a way.
I have been. So I've kind of recently we've done had a very like close relationship with the baseball team.
Yeah.
A couple weeks ago, Hayden Gardner, he's kind of their social media guy.
Yeah, I work with Hayden Gardner a little bit. Mm-hmm. I do the post game interviews.
Oh, sweet.
Him. Yeah.
So Hayden, I had collaborated with. Me and him have a good relationship, and I met with him about a month or so ago, and we were brainstorming how we can help baseball. So one of the herd's emphasis is that we reach out and we do tailgates or events we try doing at least one for all the club sports.
Right.
Like our main emphasis is obviously our like actual athletic teams like football, women's volleyball, women's soccer, women's basketball, gymnastics, men's basketball, like those affiliated sports, but we like giving love to the club teams. So we've done things for women's lacrosse, men's rugby, we reach out club baseball. He reached out to me with an opportunity that maybe we could make some shirts for their games or whatever, and he proposed that like we collaborate with them on a fundraiser, and so we worked with them on a Canes fundraiser, and then we funded to provide 50 T-shirts that were using their design of that club baseball jersey with the mountains in the background.
Those jerseys are clean. Those are super nice jerseys.
And so we kind of came up with the idea. We said, let's put that on a T-shirt and give out to students.
Yeah. And
we got a really good turnout at one of their games against Weber State a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
And so it was really fun, and it was a cool opportunity to show love to like a team that normally doesn't get a lot of fan support. Yeah. But to get a good like 20. Well, we gave out all 50 shirts, so there were like 50 students that came to the game.
Right. Yeah. I didn't work those first two games of that series, but I worked that last game that was this last weekend against Weber State from that series, and so from what I heard, like it got like a really awesome reaction to it. So and kind of like since we're kind of running a little low on time, a little out of time, we got like actually a couple of minutes, but I'm gonna just want to make this a really quick topic. So would you consider yourself a pretty good baseball fan as well?
Baseball, like, are you talking about professional baseball?
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't really ever been a huge baseball fan, but I will say I did watch a lot of this World Series and a lot of these. There's a lot of games, like there was the Mariners series that went into however many innings. 14 innings. And I remember I was up that night, and I, like, kept turning on the TV. I'd go do something. I was like, oh, this game's still on. And the same thing happened with that game. Was it Game 2 in the World?
Game 3.
Game 3 of the World Series when it went into 18 innings or 7. I don't even know how many it was.
It was 18.
It was way too many. I was just like, I remember the game starting, and then like 4 hours later,
it was still going.
It's still going on. But it was a lot of fun. It was electric to watch.
That Game 3 was. I was insane to watch, but also like just the most like grueling game to watch because I remember. I actually fell asleep during that game, not going to lie. Like, I think it was, like, the 15th inning. Like, it was, like, in the middle of the 15th inning. I was watching the game live. I was just so freaking tired that I just started falling asleep. And then, like, I wake up, it's, like, the 16th inning, and still I'm like, oh, my gosh. Freaking, yeah. Anyways, that game in general was, like, a really just an insane game as a whole. But, like, it was just Shohei Ohtani hitting, like, back-to-back solo home runs, and then Toronto just having to freaking walk him the rest of the game. It was, and you mentioned that Mariners series. So, like, I think I told you like before we started interviewing. I'm from Oregon, and so like I'm a big fan of like our Pacific Northwest team. So like the Trailblazers, the Seahawks, and the Mariners. And so like, and for several years, the Mariners have normally been like one of like the worst teams in the AL in the American League, and with now that we have like a Cal Rally, it's kind of a bit of a switch now. Like I think a few years ago, I think we broke like a 20-year curse from like we broke like a 20 some odd year curse from like a postseason curse, something like that, and we went to a wild card against the Houston Astros, and we ended up losing that series. But anyways, but then this year, I thought that was like a really special year, because keep in mind we haven't been to the ALCS since 1995, since the days of Randy Johnson and Ken Griffey Jr.
Yeah.
So yeah. Anyways, we're out of time. I appreciate you taking time to
thank you.
for you. It's been really awesome talking to you, chopping up with you, and yeah, it's been awesome.
That's been good. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah. Last night, today is Wednesday evening, coming on Wednesday evening. But last night on Tuesday night, the week 2, the second round of the college football playoff top 25 rankings were released last night, and there were a few notable names that were shown, and some really caught my eye. But here we have obviously we have number 1 and number 2. We have Ohio State at number 1 and Indiana at number 2. Texas A&M at third ranked, Alabama at 4th ranked, and then Georgia 5th ranked, Texas Tech 6th ranked, Ole Miss 7th ranked, Oregon 8th ranked, Notre Dame 9th ranked, Texas at 10. And then we have Oklahoma coming in at 11. Then we have BYU at number 12, Utah at 13, Vanderbilt at 14th ranked, which that caught my eye. I believe Vanderbilt deserves a lot more than 14th ranked, but I digress. We have Miami at 15th ranked, Georgia Tech at 16th, USC at 17th, Michigan at 18th, Virginia 19, Louisville 20, Iowa at 21, Pitt at 22, Tennessee at 23, South Florida at 24, and Cincinnati at 25. A couple of things. One, when the heck is Vanderbilt going to get the respect that they deserve? Honestly, when the heck is Vanderbilt going to get the respect that they deserve? Week 3, they have beaten then 11th ranked South Carolina. Then week 7, they beat then 10th ranked LSU. Next week, they beat then 15th ranked Missouri 17-10. Yeah, then the week after, they beat then 15th ranked 17-10. But you can make the case that prior to that LSU game, they lost to then ranked Alabama 30-14 in Tuscaloosa, and then they lost in a very tight nail biter to 20th ranked Texas 34-31 on week 9. But honestly, I think Vanderbilt is a team that deserves, even though they are a 8-2 team, I believe that Vanderbilt deserves a lot more than what they're getting. Honestly, I believe that they should be a top 10 ranked team. Here's what I mean. So, as of right now, Diego Pavia this week has rushed for 2,440 yards and has rushed for 613 yards this season. I mean, very rare quarterbacks can pull off rushing numbers like that. And I mean very rare. I mean, you look at those numbers and honestly, you'd figure, why the heck is Diego Pavia not a potential Heisman finalist? Potentially. And then on top of that, actually, looking at the stats, Diego Pavia is literally Vanderbilt's rushing leader. As a quarterback, he's Vanderbilt's rushing leader. That's pretty crazy, to be honest. But to be honest with you with that. But then on top of that, then we have their star running back Cedric Alexander, who is carried the ball 88 times this season and has rushed for 438 yards. But then let's take a look at the receiving corps for Vanderbilt. We have a tight end is leading in rushing and receiving yards for Vanderbilt. How is Vanderbilt not recognized more? Eli Stowers, tight end for Vanderbilt, received 51 times, has 669 receiving yards. A tight end, single season rushing yards is 669 this season. Ahead of Junior Sherrill, who with 470 yards, Trey Richardson 445 yards, and Richie Hoskins for 268 yards. I honestly hope the college football playoff committee isn't even listening to this podcast, because this is like my second episode. But honestly, we seriously need to give Vanderbilt more credit. Defensively, we have to look at Vanderbilt's secondary real quick. Starting off with linebacker Brian Longwell, who is recording 28 solo tackles. Doesn't have any sacks, but he's got 28 solo tackles and 30 assisted with 58 total. He has gotten one interception though, honestly. But in total, Vanderbilt defense has recorded 634 tackles for 23 sacks for 175 sack yards. They have only intercepted the ball 4 times and are recording 10 fumbles, with 7 of them being fumble recoveries. But seriously, like Vanderbilt needs more recognition than what they're getting. Because honestly, I see them being better than Texas Tech, who is 6th ranked, and because the only ranked teams they've played and won is week 4 against then 16th ranked Utah, and just this last week they were able to upset BYU, 7th ranked BYU, 29-7. But other than that, that's it. That's all the ranked teams that they played. But yet Vanderbilt has played against more ranked teams. They've got more experience playing ranked teams, but yet you can make the case that they are 2-2 against ranked teams, with 2 wins against then 11th ranked South Carolina and 10th ranked LSU, and the 2 losses coming from then 10th ranked Alabama and 20th ranked Texas. One other thing is that I think this college football playoff committee needs to really hone in on this thing called the eye test, which is looking at a team's schedule based on their strength of schedule. So that being the case, 24th ranked South Florida is 7-2. Only ranked teams that they played was from week 1 against 25th ranked Boise State, and then the next week, and their other ranked win came the following week against Florida, who is 13th ranked. And here's the thing about those 2 wins. Those 2 teams, Boise State and Florida, are no longer ranked. They're not even in the CFP. But here's the thing though. They did lose following that Florida win. They did lose to Miami at Hard Rock Stadium. Not only did they lose, but they got blown out by Miami 49-12. And Miami is now 15th ranked. But then again, there's that eye test thing again that we talked about. But here are the remaining games that USF has. So this week, they are playing against Navy. The following week is UAB. And then the next week is against Rice. So you're telling me, granted the fact that they are a group of 5 and they are 7-2 and second in the American Conference, if you look at the projected CFP bracket, the playoff bracket was released today. It would have been shown as a 12th seed, and we'd be playing against 5th seed Georgia against Georgia. I mean, I'm not going to say anything, but if that game, Georgia and South Florida, that first round game would have happened today, South Florida would have gotten their butts whooped. They would not stand against a 5th ranked Georgia team. So just what I'm trying to say here is that I don't think USF just deserves to be ranked, because they are in the American Conference, and they're not playing many ranked teams like most of teams are. But honestly, I think the deciding factor is how they will perform against their American Conference standings leader Navy this weekend, who are also 7-2 but they're 5-1 in conference play. And then also maybe one thing that we have to add is that I guess you can say I don't know if Oregon deserves to be 8th ranked. I think Oregon definitely deserves to be maybe 6th at best. With the injuries that Oregon has, I think they've turned into a completely different team. With that being said, with the key players that have been injured are wide receivers DeCorian Moore and Gary Bryant Jr., and then others are running back Jaden Lamar, defensive back Sion Laolia, and then the biggest blow was their tight end Kenyon Sadiq, who is just an absolute freak, dude. Seriously, he's just an absolute freak. He's just a jacked tight end. And how that has affected Oregon and how they're playing is, if you look back to this last week against Iowa in Des Moines, they barely were able to squeak out a win with a game-winning field goal against a 20th ranked Iowa team who was projected to beat Oregon, to upset Oregon. I mean, and then kind of looking beyond that, the prior week against Wisconsin in Eugene, if those injuries hadn't have happened, we shouldn't have beaten Wisconsin by at least maybe another 30 points, because Wisconsin is 3-6 overall and 1-5 in the Big Ten. I think it's just going to be interesting at how this plays out at the end of the season, because the top four ranked Big Ten teams in right now is Indiana, Ohio State, USC, and Oregon. And after we play Minnesota this weekend, the next week is pretty much the deciding factor as to who potentially gets to play in the Big Ten championship, because USC is ahead of Oregon. They are 7-2, but they're also 5-1. Oregon is also 5-1 in the Big Ten, and they have to play the 17th ranked USC next week. Yeah, honestly, if Oregon doesn't beat USC in 2 weeks, then chances are we probably won't see them in the college football playoff, because that might be the deciding factor as to who Oregon really is currently, because the injuries that they have are just absolutely killing them. As for Texas, honestly, I'm very impressed with them. They have almost completely turned their season around after losing week 1 against then third-ranked Ohio State. That was a massive win that was a big game for them. Texas was number 1 ranked in the season at that point, and Ohio State was 3rd ranked. Then from then it was win against San Jose State, win against UTEP, win against San Houston, and then they lost to Florida in Gainesville, and they went unranked. Then the week after they upset then 6th ranked Oklahoma 23-6. Then they went back to being ranked, and then they beat teams like Kentucky and Mississippi State, and then the following week they go back to Austin and play a great Vanderbilt team. And this week is going to be another great matchup that I can't wait to see. They play 5th ranked Georgia in Athens, Georgia, which is probably one of the toughest places to play in college football, to be honest with you. Then the week after, they've got Arkansas, and then their last week, or the last game of the season, is against a very tough Texas A&M team, 3rd ranked Texas A&M in Austin, Texas. So, yeah, honestly, Texas has really impressed me. They've completely flipped the narrative from where they were after week 6. At first, everyone thought that they turned into a complete flop. They went from being number 1 ranked in the country at the beginning of the season to being unranked because they couldn't handle a Florida team that is 3-6 overall and 2-4 in the SEC. But honestly, they completely flipped the narrative as to who they are. And honestly, at the end of the season, I see them being a SEC title contender, to be quite honest with you. As for BYU, honestly, I see them also being a contender I see them also being a contender for the Big 12 championship, because even though you could say that haven't really had a very impressive schedule, they have played against some good. They have played and won against some good teams. They played a good Utah team that was 23rd ranked, and they beat them. They won 24-3. But I think what really separated the men from the boys was last weekend's loss against Texas Tech, 8th ranked Texas Tech, by the way. Not only did BYU lose, they lost. They got absolutely dominated, 29-7. They got absolutely dominated by Texas Tech, 29-7. This week they will be playing TCU, who are 6-3 and 3-3 in conference play. If it were me, if I were a member of the college football playoff committee, I would keep the top 5 as they stand. I would keep Ohio State at number 1, Indiana at 2, Texas A&M at 3, Alabama at 4, and Georgia at 5. I would just keep those teams away where they are right now as they stand. I think that top 5 makes complete sense, makes total sense. But I see Oregon being 6, Ole Miss 7, and Texas Tech 8. I think Oregon has a lot more potential than Texas Tech and Ole Miss do. I just think they do. Even though like I said, they do have a lot of notable injuries, a lot of big injuries, but I still believe that they can get the job done. They still can get it done. Mark my words, they can get it done. And then I would still have Notre Dame at number 9, Texas at 10, but I would have BYU ahead of Oklahoma at 11 and Oklahoma at 12. I would have Utah at 13. Actually, I take that back. I would have, even though Vanderbilt's an 8-2 team, I would still have Vanderbilt in at 7th ranked. So here would be my top 10. It would be Ohio State 1, Indiana 2, Texas A&M 3, Alabama 4, Georgia 5, Oregon 6, Vanderbilt 7, Texas Tech 8, Notre Dame 9, Texas 10. That's what I would have. That's what I would put in, honestly. But yeah. And then I would have Ole Miss be 14th ranked. Then I would have Miami at 15. Then I would, and honestly, I would not have Georgia Tech at 16th. I actually would have them probably 20th, due to the fact that the only ranked team that they played and won was Week 3 against Clemson, and that was a 24-21 win. Other than that, they've gotten the only win that they've got, or other than that, that's it. That's all. That's seriously all the teams that they've only ranked teams so far that they played. They've got, at the end of the season, they've got 5th ranked Georgia, which is obviously an in-state rivalry game, but that should decide who really Georgia Tech is, because Georgia is known for having a very tough offense and a very tough defense to play. But we shall see. So I would have Georgia Tech be 19th ranked, and then it would be 17th or 16th USC, 18th Michigan, 16th USC, 17th Michigan, 18th Virginia, and then I would have Georgia Tech at 20, and then I would have Louisville at 20, Iowa at 6-3, Pitt 7-2, and then Tennessee at 23, South Florida 24, and then Cincinnati at 25. That's how I would have it. All that would make sense to me. So now, with all those rankings being said, let's move on. Let's move to the matchups, the Week 11 matchups we got this weekend for college football, and we've got some really good ones, and some that are excited, and I'm excited to see. We've got on Friday night we have Minnesota playing 8th ranked Oregon in Eugene at Autzen Stadium. That I know that place is going to be absolutely rocking there. I have seen a game there in person, and it is in the atmosphere there is absolutely off the chain. I know that Oregon is expected to absolutely flatten Minnesota, but that should be a pretty good appetizer going into Saturday. And then the Saturday slate of games, ooh boy, we've got some really good ones. We've got a 9th ranked Notre Dame team against 22 Pitt at 10 a.m. right after College game day. And then from there on, we've got 11th ranked Oklahoma at 4th ranked Alabama in Tuscaloosa. Then we have, and then during that same time, we've got 21st ranked Iowa against 17th ranked USC right at the same time as that Oklahoma Alabama game. And then in the prime time, the nightcap is the one that we're all going to be having eyes on. Is 10th ranked Texas and 5th ranked Georgia. But honestly, let's kind of dive into this Texas-Georgia matchup. So Arch Manning coming into this game, he has been passing for 2,123 yards compared to Georgia's Gunnar Stockton, who has been passing for 2,040 yards, with Arch Manning throwing for 6 interceptions and Stockton throwing for 2. Arch is 168 for Arch Manning is 1 for 68 for Arch. Good grief! Arch Manning is throwing for 1 for 68 for. Arch Manning is 168 for 268 completions and throwing for 18 touchdowns, whereas Stockton is 179 for 258 completions and 15 touchdowns. Texas's star wide receiver Ryan Wingo has 593 receiving yards for 31 receptions and 5 touchdowns, whereas Zachariah Branch, the wide receiver Zachariah Branch for Georgia has 542 receiving yards for 53 receptions and 3 touchdowns. But to be honest with you, let's look at these teams defensively. Texas's defensive captain. Texas's defensive captain Colin Simmons has recorded 8 sacks this season, and Georgia's C.J. Allen has recorded 3.5 sacks this season. Texas's star linebacker Anthony Hill Jr. leads the team in tackles for 64 tackles this season, and Georgia's defensive linebacker linebacker C.J. Allen leads the team in tackles for 75 tackles this season. Like I said, this is going to be a very. I think these teams are very evenly matched, both offensively and defensively. But I think it's going to come down to Arch Manning and his decision making, because we have seen Arch Manning. Obviously, like I said earlier, we've seen Texas has struggled at the beginning of the season. Lost to Iowa State. They lost to Ohio State week 1, and then since then they've losing to a bunch of Group of 5 teams. They've lost to San Jose, or they beat San Jose State, UTEP, and Sam Houston State, but that one loss came from an unranked Florida team in Tallahassee, that is. That was when they went unranked, and that was when we were kind of having doubts with Arch Manning, but they were able to quickly flip that around and upset Oklahoma, 6th-ranked Oklahoma, in the Red River rivalry game, then beating teams of Kentucky, Mississippi State, and 9th-ranked Vanderbilt. So I think it all comes down to, I think we'll see who Texas really is in this Georgia game, because, like I said earlier, Georgia has a very tough, very, very tough defense. Oh, freak. But but we all know that Georgia normally has a great defense, but looking at the stats this season, the college football stats for this season, Texas is tied for 2nd ranked against Texas A&M for the most sacks this season. They have 34 sacks this season. So, but like I said, this should just come down to Arch Manning and his decision making, and because we've seen that, we've seen it earlier this season. Arch Manning is making very very questionable decisions, making risky throws that shouldn't be thrown, making interceptions in the red zone. We saw that in the Florida game. But honestly, this should be a great game. I honestly can't wait to see it. Hopefully I get to be able to see it. If YouTube TV and ESPN could get their crap together and get a deal signed. I honestly have not been able to watch hardly any good college football games because of this deal that YouTube TV and ESPN are doing. It's honestly, yeah. Anyways, I feel for those who are YouTube TV customers and are affected by this, seriously. But anyways, I digress. So, we thank you to those who have tuned into today's podcast. Next week's guest will be a guest that I am not going to tell you guys who it is. It's going to be a surprise for you guys. That's for you to find out next week on next week's podcast. But anyways, I appreciate you guys for tuning into this episode of the Huddle podcast. I hope you guys are doing great today, and I will see you guys on next week's episode. You guys take care and have a great rest of your day. Break.